Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the Casey Catch Up. In this episode, we chat to Jeffrey Spencer, runner-up of the Molokai to Oahu 2019 foil. We unpack what happened in that race and how he lost it in that last couple of kilometres. We go through a lot of equipment, how he goes so fast downwind foiling. We also go into his wing foil acrobatics, backflips, front flips, and free wing airs. And then get into a little bit of equipment sort of chat, mast length, fuse length, front wing, tail wing. All in all, it was really fun to catch up with Jeffrey, a real rising star in the foiling scene. I'm sure in years to come, he's going to be really pushing the sport to higher and higher levels. I want to thank everyone for continuing to watch. This is, I think, episode number 8. And if you haven't already, I'd love you to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow the podcast on Spotify. If you are interested in learning downwind foil, you've come to the right place. Head to my website, caseyoz.com, and check out the Coach Casey Club. It's an online course or tutorial. Basically, it's a community to get you downwind foiling as quick as possible. We want to see more people out there downwind foiling, having fun, and tapping into this awesome new sport that is downwind foiling. So thanks for listening and enjoy the chat. We've got Jeffrey Spencer on board, Molokai to Oahu 2019. First to China Wall, but second overall. Jeffrey, thanks for joining us today. And do you want to give us a quick intro into, I guess, how you got into foiling and, I guess, what you're known for, basically?
Yeah, thanks, James. It's good to be here. I started foiling 4 or 5 years ago. When like Alex Garing, those guys were first making like the surf foils here on Maui. I was just working with them on it. And a few years ago, we started winging, and now I do a lot of windsurfing and downwind foiling and surf foiling and pretty much any kind of foiling.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very modest. Jeffrey's like, you were testing GoFoil stuff with Kai way back in the day, like when Kai first did his. So I think it's almost 6 years ago. You pretty much have grown up with foiling. You know, I'm very jealous. And Jeffrey lives in Maui, right on the Molokai run, basically, and he's a freak. My first downwind run was with Jeffrey. I think, actually, we were just talking about prone foiling. Remember how we went from Kuau back to your place at Sugar Cove? I pretty much got stuck out there. You and Finn just took off.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what I do? I remember like wondering like who we should call or like how we should go look for you.
Yeah.
You're lost out there.
I managed to get a ship in on a reef, and I finally got in. But it was I think that was my first downwind run with you and and with you and Finn, and it was an experience.
Yeah, that's crazy doing a prone one on your first one.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess we were just chatting, and I want to kick things off and talk about Molokai to Oahu 2019. People that in the downwind foil world, I think, will know that you beat Kai to China Wall by like a lot. Like you beat him by minutes to China Wall, and then Kai famously basically pumped upwind, and there were basically no waves that year too. Pumped upwind and passed you paddling on your stomach all the way to the finish. I think he ended up beating you by like a couple minutes just because that upwind leg was horrendous. I was on a stand up, and it was on an 18-footer, and it was horrendous. You were on your, I don't know, 5 foot, 6 foot sup foil board paddling, and I remember passing you, and you looked like you looked over, you were like just like cooked. You were done. So tell us run us through that race, because I think everyone wants to know what happened and how you beat Kai by so much across the channel, and then he pulled it out of the bag coming in.
Yeah, the race is super interesting, especially on a foil, because you need like a certain minimum speed to get going. And even at the start, it's just off of Molokai, so the wind hasn't like had enough time to form into like solid bumps yet. So you definitely have to like grind pretty hard at the start to get up. I think Kai, Clement, and I got up, maybe a couple other people, like right away at the start of the line. And it's basically just like you need to conserve a lot of energy because you have 32 miles to go. So that part's kind of scary. But you basically just need to keep it going through that. And then pretty soon the bumps got good, which was awesome. It was a pretty good year. And then, I think definitely like I had a lot of time practicing and focusing on equipment design with Tony Lagoche, who designs the foils for Slingshot. And we made some really fast wings that worked really well. And leading up to the race, I did like 3 runs a day for a few weeks, 2 to 3, not 3 every day. But it was a lot, and definitely a lot of practice with technique and really getting comfortable on the foil and figuring out the best way to go from bump to bump. And then, yeah, I think just gradually over the course of the whole race, I was just making a bigger gap to everyone else. I think I reached the wall 6 to 10 minutes before Kai did. And then coming around, there's kind of a little reef there where the China wall wave breaks. And I like to get anywhere into that headwind, you need a bump, even on a small day. Like it's possible to get something to go in. And I came around and there was like one small one lining up behind me. And I like tried to slow down to kind of get it because I was too far in front of it. Just hit, just like couldn't slow down in the right way and came down by the reef. And once you're down, it's like getting back up into the wind would be kind of crazy. I almost thought about like pumping back up, going out from the finish line and then turning around and trying to catch a wave. But I don't know, it's such a gamble. Like if the other person comes in and they do the same thing, but they just like they come down and keep going, they could pass you. But yeah, I missed the wave, just started grinding, paddling. Kai came in, he definitely got like something. I didn't see exactly what he got, but as he came by me, he was definitely like on a lump of water, you know, like going in through that. There's kind of that reef, a huge dead section, and then the small reefs inside where you can catch something again. So he made it through the dead section and yeah, got me there. But it's definitely like how it goes in races like that. Like I definitely remember some stand-up paddle races I've had where I caught waves to pass people for the win, which so yeah, it's how it is on those ones. I was pretty happy. I was really happy with how well I was able to do up to that point.
Yeah, and I guess you could argue the downwind foil section, you smoked him. Like really, you downwind foiling, you beat him by, like you said, 6 to 10 minutes. But Molokai isn't just downwind, and that's what's sort of famous for, is that headwind section. And it sucks that the race was just a downwind foil race was decided in like literally prone paddling to the finish line. But I mean, a lot of, you know, the fact that your foil was faster, maybe, you know, because of you had to go slower that end section. I guess maybe Kai had thought of that, which some people have sort of said to me before. Maybe he knew that he had to be able to pump up wind and he used a slower foil.
No, absolutely. It's a huge part of it. I was prepared, like on that foil, I can pump it up in flat water and everything. So I was definitely like mentally prepared to be able to get through that if I had the opportunity. But yeah, I just didn't line it up right at all.
Yeah. There's nothing like, you know, 30 miles of downwinding to sort of, or 31 miles of downwinding to then paddle it up in the flat with a headwind. You know, it's not easy.
Yeah, definitely. I think like Clement, he was on a bigger wing, so at the end, like he might have actually pumped it up and gotten close. He came in third at the finish, I think. So I think he was on it. He went for something more like that.
Yeah, I actually looked at the results just before, and I think Kai ended up getting you by about 6 or 7 minutes, and then you only beat Clement by about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, which...
I was paddling in on my stomach, and I'm like, I was still grinding, like you have your head down the whole time, but then I literally turned around and I could see him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's kind of coming up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really just had to go strong at that finish.
Yeah, and so for me, I witnessed that because I was paddling in at the same time as you, and I literally saw Kai. I was approaching China Wall, and Kai went past me around the corner, and I'm like, oh, Kai's won it. Like, no surprise. Bummed for everyone else because I'd love to see someone else win. And I, went paddling in, and I was like, oh, I'll probably catch Kai because he was, on a foil. He's going to have to paddle in prone. And I paddled in, and I couldn't see him, and I kept paddling, and I saw you, and I'm like, oh, maybe it wasn't Kai I saw, maybe it was Jeffrey. And obviously I've just paddled stand up across from Molokai. So maybe I'm a bit delirious. And I'm like, maybe that was Jeffrey who pumped past me. And I got to the finish line and Kai was there. I'm like, so when did Jeffrey come in? Because I never saw him. And then everyone explains Jeffrey won to the wall and then came down. And it was like, oh, man, bummer, because I've done a lot of stuff with Jeff. Like I've stayed at your place, and we've done plenty of firsts, like deck foiling. You basically taught me to foil, and downwind foil and all that sort of stuff. So it would have been cool. I would have been in your corner if you'd won it, and still stoked that you got second, because it was a super, man. That was what a year. That was a shame there wasn't a bit more swell at the finish, but otherwise it was wind-wise, that was the very strong winds and epic downwind conditions. So
I'd love a finish with a massive south swell, because it's kind of the same. It's kind of the opposite problem where we'd have to ride these really big foils for the downwind part of the run. And then we get to the finish and those wings are just so massive to handle, like actual big swell, that everyone would probably get destroyed. I mean, it's the same thing on the stand-up paddle boards, right? Like riding those 17-foot ones through massive swells, it's just crazy. But yeah, that'd be pretty funny. I think
imagine if we got wind and waves, and so for the finish on the foil, like you'd be using. I'm sure you probably could have used a smaller foil, because you said you'd anticipated getting in the headwind section and getting up early. It's really interesting for downwind foiling racing, because especially from Molokai to Oahu, the start it's not flat, but it's howling offshore, and the bumps it's pretty much flat at the start, where the start line.
You have the winds kind of at the side as well, so it's not perfectly behind you. But yeah, the water is super flat, because you start I don't know, 50 yards off the shore only. So yeah, definitely it plays a huge role in what wing you ride, having to start like that, especially, and then the finish as well. Is just
worse than flat. I'd say the finish. It's like that year especially. It was so strong in my face. Like I was on a paddleboard, and so it's better than a foil, obviously, but I felt like I wasn't moving, and like. The wind was super strong through the channel, which meant it was wrapping around the Coco head and coming back up into your face. And it was, well done on getting in, man. That was.
Well, yeah, even when you get a wave of China wall, like grinding and keeping up the pace on one of those things like I did is insane for sure. Like it's the hardest part for sure. If you're able to make it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'll try and find the footage and post it somewhere. But Kai, there is footage of Kai like literally weaving between the reef at China Wall and milking this bump, and it doesn't look that windy in the footage because it's drone footage, and drones never do windy conditions justice. But it looks like it's kind of smooth and there's a little bit of bump, but it was flat, and any bump felt like you were just getting blown off the back. Like I tried to paddle onto a wave on my 18-foot stand-up paddleboard, and I literally got blown off the back. Like, it was no chance I was staying on it. On a foil, like, a headwind is the worst thing for any sort of foiling.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I tried to catch waves inside as well, and it was super challenging because, once that board's in the air, it's like a sail on its own.
Yeah. Plus your body, and, I'm just stoked that to have witnessed that, to see you guys paddling, and I think I was coming in on a wave actually, and you were in front of me, and I had to go sort of around you, and you were on the reef or near the reef, and it was just I felt for you, man, because that was not a I just can't believe that they make you finish where everyone else finishes.
Yeah, well, it's tough for you guys too. Super impressive to finish like that. I think maybe next year or something they might finish like at the canoe club or off the point. It's definitely, they've been talking about it, but
I don't know. So that
could be cool
at the canoe club, I think, because while it's a bit longer, I think it'd probably be shorter. in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
That paddle in takes probably how long? Like half an hour on its own, I think.
Like prone, I'd say so. Sup, it's a bit quicker because you continuously moving, but it's it's not a short paddle. Like it's 2.5 kilometers. I measured, or 2 to 2.5 kilometers, which
for us spoilers, it's like a fifth of the race or something crazy.
Yeah, seriously,
it's a long time
because you guys are so quick when there's wind behind you, and then as soon as it's the opposite, it's I'm hoping, I wanted to do Molokai and the Sup just to sort of back up But because it's now going to be at least a couple of years before they run it again, I'm really keen to foil it. I think that's where the race is now, because there's less guys supping it and more guys foiling it. So it'd be a cool. I personally, I wish they did separate days. You know, they did like sup on one day and foil. You know, maybe a week later would be nice.
Yeah. Are you going to be? I think they're having the race in the Gorge again in August. Are you going to be going to that one, or?
It's Australia's like freaking lockdown. Like when I'm actually currently in a lockdown, we're not even allowed to go visit family or friends. Like only allowed to exercise with another person. So it's, we're still in a pandemic. We're not allowed to travel. I'm not even allowed to leave Sydney at the moment.
Well, that's good. not for racing, but for Australia, that's good.
Yeah, it's a bummer for racing, but hopefully we get it under control and the vaccine rollout goes ahead and everything opens up, because it looks like over, the US looks like it's pretty much open. You guys are traveling wherever, and
yeah, maybe a bit too open with some areas, but I think we're very lucky in the US that they've gotten a lot of vaccinations in for most people, so it's a lot of stuff is opening up.
Different. Let's get back to downwind foiling, because we can't solve the politics and pandemics. You spoke about like you spend a lot of time training and working on your sort of pumping technique between swells and wind chops and defining the two. I want to back up a little bit, and what sort of tips do you have for crew that want to learn to downwind foil and are struggling to paddle up onto the foil? Because you're a freak. I've tried one of your boards and it's tiny. You're obviously a bit lighter than me, but like the way you paddle up is really impressive, and I'm sure you've got some sort of insight for everyone looking to do it.
Yeah, it's definitely like for a lot of us, especially having been stand-up paddlers before, is extremely helpful. Especially like stand-up paddle surfers, where we ride those tiny little sinky boards and have to like paddle into the wave. It's kind of the same motion as that.
Yeah.
But going straight to sup, I think as long as you're able to get a board that is big enough to support you, I guess, is pretty important for beginners. And then something that is efficient enough to like get moving forward, because most foils, they're only going to get up at a certain minimum speed. So as long as you can just really like focus on moving the board forward before you focus on trying to pump up, that's super important when it comes to like flat water or downwind, just to be able to get up right away.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. A lot of people, they try to get lift too early and then they basically stall the board and they fall backwards. So if you think about your board, you want to kind of be, sort of pumping it and getting the speed forwards before you even ever think about lift off.
Absolutely. You want to keep it like really low and like 10 or even 20 strokes, even just stay focused on going straight, keep it close to the water. And then once you're up to that minimum speed, then start getting the foil involved as well. I guess you get it involved like straight from the start, like you can feel it, but really focusing on getting up at that point.
Yeah, that's for sure. And then I guess for me, what I think about once I have the speed, I think about almost, you start to lean back a little bit more. And for me, I guess I'm probably on a bigger board than you, but I shift my foot back over the mast to get that, and that final lift off. So once I have speed, and you can feel the board starting to lift, and then I shift okay, I'm starting to get there, and then you just shift your foot back. It's only a tiny bit, just like shuffling it across, and that little shuffle back allows you to get that like enough. It's like a lift off just to clear the water, and then once you're up, it's happy days. But it's speed for sure is the most important thing, and then that little shuffle back for
having the right balance of your weight is super critical in downwind foiling, and being able to move your feet around is extremely helpful. A lot of people, they ride with foot straps, I think, because they enjoy the way, like when they pump with their front foot, it keeps them locked in, which I definitely understand. But it does make it more challenging to adjust your weight easily, I definitely like it's tough because if some people have been using straps and they like them, then it can be better for them. But yeah, it's super important to be able to just move your feet pretty much all the time and make slight adjustments, and to really make sure you're being as efficient as you can be, so you're not like wasting any energy with your weight too far forward or too far back or anything like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, a lot of people tend to like the foot straps, and like you said, I'm probably more on, like, I agree with you in that I don't like the foot strap because it locks me into one spot where I like to move my feet around a lot. Like if I need to get my weight.
If you're super dialed on your setup and you know the exact balance points and everything, it can be good. But if you're trying to figure something out and learn something, it can be very beneficial to be able to move around and make those slight adjustments.
Yeah, it's almost like you need the you almost, personally, I feel like you need to understand where to put the foot strap initially, because you can't just put a foot strap in the spot and expect it to be the right spot from the get-go. So like,
definitely.
I guess for people that want to use foot straps, I definitely recommend starting without, and make a mental note of where your front foot is most of the time, and then put the foot strap there. Don't just whack it on anywhere, because you're going to find that your balance is probably out, unless you get lucky. Sometimes people get lucky and they just plonk it in one spot and they nail it. But it's I'd say it's rare. We've gotten up. We're going to think about speed first and then lift. After we've done that, we're then basically, we've got a link bumps. So Jeffrey, do you want to tell us a little bit about technique? I know you've dialed it, because you're the quickest across Molokai, from Molokai to Oahu, the KB channel. So what's the trick to linking bumps, and what's your advice?
It's super important, especially on a foil, to like look ahead when you're on a bump, because if you're at the top of one and going forward, you're going to be going fast. But if you run into the back of the one in front of you, you're going to slow right down. So it depends on the size foil you're riding, like the maximum speed and acceleration it has. Some like bigger foils, they'll be easier to get up on, and then you'll probably be looking more at the bumps to either side of you, either left or right. And then other faster ones, you can like look diagonally in front to the side, or like right or left, or even sometimes straight over one in front of you. But it's basically like you're always just looking around and kind of calculating like which way is going to be the easiest or fastest bump to like get back to the top of another one, and then repeating that thought process hundreds of times, I guess, as you go. But yeah, the best days are when you can basically just like line it up straight, and every single time you go down the next one, you end up at the top of a new bump. That's pretty much the goal. And I think with some big foils, it can be like easier to get up on, but then once you're actually up riding, they can make it more difficult to actually carry your momentum from bump to bump, because there's a lot more drag on them. So it's definitely finding the right balance of speed versus ability to start easily on it for a lot of people is sure. Definitely important.
That's a really good point, Jeffrey. The faster foils, you're looking sort of more forward and kind of out like this, and then the bigger foils, you really have to weave sideways, because you're not going as fast as some of those swells, and you've got to almost ignore the sort of ground swells that are running by you, and really narrow your focus in on the wind chops. And for what I did anyway, when I first learned, I was like, and you as well, I'm sure, when we first started, we're basically just using the wind chops like we were on the stand-ups. Like we're just basically tiptoeing on just on the ground swell, and you have to pull off and get onto a wind chop, and then tap onto a ground swell, and then pull off onto a wind swell. Now the gear's gotten even better, and literally you can sit on a ground swell for like sometimes a kilometer. Like I've had my fastest kilometer, I've literally was just on this one swell and just moving the whole way. And I'm sure, I'm talking to the quickest guy in a foil. I'm sure Molokai to Oahu, you're probably just standing there a couple of times and thinking, it's not so bad, Molokai to Oahu, just sitting on this massive swell on your foil and just sort of gliding. So yeah, that's good advice from Jeffrey. So everyone listening, bigger foils, easier to get up, but you have to change the way you think about foiling. You're not going to be going straight with the swells. Bigger angle.
It's definitely like important to match the conditions or the location you're in as well, because like in Hood River where you're going up current, the bumps are much slower. So big foils are actually a lot better. Like they're a much better match for the pace of the bumps there. Especially for most people. Like I'll ride a small one and I'll just be grinding like the whole time, just trying to get through. It's not like here where you can get one of those big ocean swells and then your foil like matches it really well. And yeah, I think especially with the big ones, like looking side to side is I don't know what I was trying to say there. I think just looking all around.
I sort of know the bigger foils, like you're saying, in like, so when I do a bay downwinder, it's basically like Hood River. It's like it's slower and it's more lined up, and basically those slower bumps, they're not moving as fast, obviously, because they're slower. So you need to use. There's no point using this super fast foil in that stuff, because as you said, you just have to pump the whole way through. So it's not fun. You're literally you're doing. It's like going for a flat water paddle pump, because you're literally paddling and you're pumping the whole way down the run. You don't get any assistance from those slower bumps in the ocean, or if you use a slower foil that is better suited to the bumps, you can literally tap into that little bit of energy, because the bumps are going faster than your foil. If your foil is going faster than the bumps, you may as well be in flat water.
Right. And the thing I was trying to remember was for Molokai, especially, like the bumps are massive and they really fold over each other, but it's still like you have to be thinking so much, because it's so easy to just get an insane amount of speed from one bump and ride it out, but then you'll run into the back of another one right away. So it's like the entire time you have to be really focused on not running into the back of bumps and really making sure you're on the best line to have like the right amount of energy. And it's kind of a balance between energy and speed for a lot of downwind runs. Like you can see bumps that you think like, oh, if I use this much energy, I'll be able to get onto this one. But sometimes like it's not worth that effort, where you could like line up onto the one next to you and then use that one to slingshot past the next one, I guess. So it's definitely like calculating which bumps are worth making the effort for that, like if they're going to put you far enough ahead on the next one, or if you think I could give my all to this bump in front of me, but I'm just going to be just on the back of it and not going to get in front of it. So it's better if I turn to this one and then use the speed from that to get to the next one.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of thinking like that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's like risk reward, isn't it? If I could pump up and over the back of this bump, but is it going to be better if I just wait for like either an opening, or if I just sort of use the speed of this to sort of slingshot myself down, up and over. So that's good tips, and nice one, Jeffrey. I like that. There's
been plenty where I've tried to like you think you got it and you like try to give it your everything, and maybe you didn't like line up the bump you were on very well. Like maybe you started on the bottom instead of at the top, and you just grind and you get the paddle involved, but you still like just miss the one in front of you, or even like just make it, but then you're so gassed on energy that you can't like keep doing that over and over again. So it's definitely important to make the right decisions.
It's heartbreaking when that happens, when you go for it and you pump it, you get up and over, and it's like, oh, I'm not going to make it. I have to concede. You like basically turn back with your tail between your legs and you go down on the one you're on. Basically, you've made no ground and you've used all this effort. And okay, that's such a Let's talk about, so when you're using this effort to get up and over, paddling and pumping, you mentioned, what are you focusing on, like technique-wise? Are you thinking about, like, talk us through your pump and when you'd engage the paddle?
It's tough because like in practice, using the paddle seems to always be faster, but you definitely use a lot of energy when you get involved. So it's definitely like when you feel like you're starting to get stuck and you really just need to keep the momentum going, you can kind of tell when your foil's about to drop out, or you're about to lose the speed. So that's definitely the time to get involved. I think for a lot of beginners, it's like if you end up in a bit of a slow spot, but you see the path to the top of the next bump or something, then you get it involved. And just kind of like sometimes it can help save some of your leg energy if you're like really thinking about it and using it to get to the top of the next one. But yeah, it's helpful when you need it, I guess.
It's kind of only when you've made a mistake or you're really pushing to get up and over one, isn't it? Because if you basically, I chatted to Dave about a week ago, and he was saying, Dave does the paddle over the shoulder,
Yeah,
does the sword in the back. They don't need that anymore. He's up. He just uses the paddle to get going. And one thing he said was that because he isn't using his paddle anymore, he finds he's become more fine-tuned about where to put the foil. So what I took from that, and it sort of makes sense with me too, is the paddle is good to get you out of the mistake. But if you can avoid making the mistake, it's going to be even better. So, obviously you're pushing it really hard. You're trying to go as fast as you can down a run. You're making these decisions where you're like, well, I might not make it over this one, but if I do, I'm going to be quicker. So I'm going to go for it. And maybe half of those, or 1 in 10, you don't quite get it right, and you've got to paddle, and you paddle yourself out of trouble. What
right.
Dave's doing is he's like, well, if it's a 50-50, I'm going to leave that, and I'm just going to stay on this bump, and then when it opens up, then I'm going to go. So it's the paddle's a great thing because one, it can get you up, and two, it can get you out of those sticky situations. But you don't want to rely on it too much, is what Dave was saying. And it sounds like you're using the paddle only to get yourself out of those bad decisions that have been made.
For the most part, yeah. I think for anyone out there like doing downwind runs, if you really focus on trying to use the paddle as little as possible, it'll help you a lot in practicing just the right way to, or the best way to put the foil in the right spots on the bumps. Yeah, it's super helpful. And then you'll start to get better at it, and you'll feel like you don't even need the paddle anymore, and you can do what Dave does. Yeah, stash it up.
Yeah, I literally just I just popped a tire on my bike, so I'm like, oh, I'm going to use this inner tube to do the Dave Kalama paddle on the back. So we haven't.
It's really nice when your hands are free. Actually, you can kind of swing them and use them to pump, and that's a big part of why surf foil downwinders are so fun. Like, you feel so light up in the air. You can go really fast still, and you don't feel like you have anything like weighing you down on them. But so it's definitely like, it's really fun if you can just let go of the paddle and just ride.
Yeah, well, let's go into the prone downwinders, because I was just chatting to Kahi yesterday, and he's done like a ridiculous out to sea prone downwind foil, and super high risk, but the reward is kind of, because it is so risky, it's a pretty cool feeling. Jack and Mateo came over from Oahu, and you said you did a couple of downwind prone foils with them from Hukipa to Sugar Cove, and talk us through it. Did you come unstuck, or was it a success?
When we first started doing them a while ago, I think we luckily made our first one, but eventually, if you keep on doing them, you're going to fall at some point. It's just kind of inevitable. Whether, I don't know, you like hit a turtle or something, or more likely you'll make some sort of mistake. And I think that's why we do them from Hokipa to Sugar Cove, where we go, is because there's like outer reefs the whole way along. So if you fall maybe 20 minutes most, you can paddle to the next reef down and catch a wave to try and get back up. If it's flat, it's really sketchy.
Yeah.
But especially if you do it on lines where you don't have waves in the path, it can be really bad if you fall. You have to paddle a long ways. But once you're up, it's awesome. Like, the board's so small and maneuverable, and it feels like you're just riding waves the whole way down, like surf foiling.
Are you using a smaller foil when you prone, or are you using the same setup?
It's usually, you'd probably use the same, just because smaller foils can be less reliable for staying up. So you want that reliability for sure. So yeah, usually you'd ride the same thing as you use for stand-up downwind.
Yeah, I know your stand-up is probably similar to my prone board. Actually, let's go to that. What dimensions, like what board are you using at the moment? Like, what's your go-to? What are your leaders? Length, width?
For stand-up downwind.
Yeah, for some. And then go prone as well.
I think it's 5'4", and 65 liters, something around that. Yeah, that's what I use for stand-up downwind.
Yeah.
And then for surf foiling, it's 4.6 around there, and about just over 20 liters, 20 to 25. I think are the different sizes. And I use the same one for surf foiling as I do for winging, for the most part. Basically, for that, you just want, I mean, for all this stuff, you just want something that can get you up, and then, yeah, once you're up, you're good.
Yeah. So 65 liters for a stand-up. To me, obviously, I would never be able to do that because I'm 82 kilos. What do you weigh? And then we can translate it pound to kilos.
Yeah, I don't know in kilos, but I'm like 155 pounds.
Okay, 150 pounds. I'm going to type it in. It is, yeah, so 68 kilos. So the general rule is you want to go at the most a couple liters below your body weight. So I'm 82 kilos and I'm riding a 78 liter sup. You're 68 kilos and using a 65 liter sup. So basically the ratio is the same, but yeah, that's interesting. So I always thought I was on this big board.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That's a good measurement kind of thing. I think, yeah, for most people beginning, you could probably ride something similar to like mine. For me is a bit sinky. If you're starting out, you probably want something a bit more
buoyant,
a bit more floating.
Yeah. If I'm not paddling, I'm kind of like, you're slowly sinking. You know, it's like, okay, keep moving. Actually, what width? Do you know what width you're using? Because that's something that I found makes a really big difference. I'm pretty sure you hold it under your arm, so it's not too wide. But
it's definitely challenging to hold under your arm, especially like the stand-up ones, because of the thickness mostly. I think it's like 22. It's been a while since I made the last one I'm riding, but that sounds about right. I think a lot of guys like Dave and a lot of other people here are riding narrower boards to get that like forward speed, yes. that initial acceleration, which makes a lot of sense. It's just balance is an issue.
Yeah, that's it. And so, like, yeah, we both sort of come from raceboard backgrounds, and there's no question that a narrower board is that's the best way to make a board faster, is make it narrower. But narrower means it's harder to stand on. For sup, it means you're more likely to fall off. For foiling, not so much. As long as you can get going, the narrower board makes zero difference because you're really just using the foil. So there has been a shift, it seems, to narrower boards for downwind sup foiling, which makes total sense because, you know, paddling out, yeah, it's going to suck. But it only takes, I don't know, Jeremy 3 strokes. Most people 10 to 20 strokes to get up onto the foil. So it's, as long as you can balance for that long, you're going to be okay. To start with, I definitely recommend going a little bit wider, sort of around that 25, 26, just because you're not guaranteed to get up. And if you're paddling down the coast, there's nothing worse than, you know, not being able to stand on a board. And like Jeffrey said, you don't want to go exact kilos to liters. You probably want to go a little bit more liters than you weigh, so you have a bit better balance.
Yeah, and if you've never stand-up paddled before, it might be worth like practicing on a stand-up paddle board and just going around for it, because it's certainly very challenging on its own. And then the foil actually surprisingly adds quite a bit of, it's stability, but it's weird stability where you have to get used to the way it moves through the water. But it definitely like stabilizes you a bit from side to side, just because it's like a massive dagger board in the water. For sure. You don't want to rely on it too much. It's still not that stable.
Yeah, it does help, but
yeah,
it's still, if you're riding a 20-inch wide board, it's still 20 inches. You know, you still have to be able to stand on the thing. Yeah. Don't bite off more than you can chew. I'm going to shift gears a little bit, and like obviously the prone downwinding epic, the sup downwinding. That's my passion. I think that's where the sport's going to go for the racing. The prone to me is a little bit risky, but the wing foiling is something that's really taken off. And I think when I was over in Maui last, there was just Tituan and Clement riding at Hukeeper, and that was just about it. This is 2019. And I'm not even sure you guys had started, but you're ripping on the wing now, and I'm super stoked watching. So tell us about what it is you're doing most time. Like, start with, let's talk about wing downwinders, and you said you're getting ready for paddle and moolah. So what are you looking at? Like, are you free winging downwind? Are you sailing with the wing? Talk us through it.
Yeah, we definitely started before those guys. I think I can't remember exactly what year it was. Maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It's hard to remember all these dates. But Tony Lagos, who the slingshot designer, he had made a wing in 2011 that he was riding on like a surfboard. So when Ken Winter brought it back like many years later, or probably 4 years ago, 3 or 4, something like that. On the foil, he had that thing already ready to go, so he sent it over, and we tried it foiling first, just downwinding. I remember I went out with Casper Steinfath from Kuau again on a super light day, and he was on his stand-up foil, and I was with the wing, and we just took it out. And we were like, okay, we're just gonna go figure this thing out. And I remember the wind kind of just died. We got stuck there. We tried to paddle up, and then Casper snapped his paddle in half. So we ended up paddling like a few miles down into Baldwin Beach, and it was kind of a disaster. But yeah, after that, we figured it out. Wings got a lot better pretty fast. The development from everyone just went really fast, and pretty much every company jumped on it, which makes a lot of sense because like from the start, you could tell it was a really what's the way to put this? It's a sport that works very well, I guess, and it makes a lot of sense because it's really easy to set up, like the wing as opposed to a kite with all the lines in it, or a windsurfer with the boom and the mast and all that. And yeah, it just, ever since like we had all the experience from surf foiling and downwind foiling, which made kind of doing all those things on the wing a lot easier to get into, and as opposed to like just learning to foil as we were winging. So I think the progression with the wing just went insanely fast because it started with a bunch of people that already knew how to foil and were already very high level foilers. We're all just, like especially with the internet and stuff, just sharing new tricks you do, and you've seen other people do stuff like Balls in Europe. He's insane. He's a freestyle windsurfer, and he's very talented in that already. So he brought a ton of that skill into windsurfing. So yeah, it's just progressed extremely fast for how new of a sport it is. It's only been a few years, and we're already doing flips and massive jumps and surfing and downwinding and everything.
Yeah, I'm just going to share. So here's Jeffrey's Instagram. Which one should I share? I want to. This is one.
The second to last one I posted is a really good video.
Okay, yeah. I want to share that other one. It's more sort of free wings.
Yeah, the surf one as well.
But this is what Jeffrey's doing, everyone. He's pushing the limits, basically. So that's a forward on a wing with a foil. And then I'm pretty sure this is a back.
So yeah, the past few weeks I've been really working on cleaning up the forwards. When I first tried it, like I had no idea if they'd be actually like possible to land at all. Well, like let alone that smooth. Same with the backflip too. Like I'm just really happy those tricks work so well and you're able to land them so smoothly.
I'm just processing what you're doing here. Like I understand why you're saying the front is harder, because the back you're going back and you're rotating continually the same direction, whereas the front you're going the other way and you're sort of landing flat, and the foils, it wants to go the other way, whereas a back you land, the foils continuing to go forward. So that's a good little
in terms of landing, like the backflip is actually, it's one of the easiest, or not easiest, it's one of the smoothest jumps to land, just because the board's rotating in a way that moves the momentum forward as you come through, like landing on the water. And the forward is just the exact opposite of that. Like the board's moving in the opposite direction you want to go, so you have to stop your rotation and then start moving the other way to come out of it. So you have to be very precise with that one. for sure.
And also, if you over rotate forward, you're like face planting, whereas if you over rotate backwards, you're landing on your back, which is, again, yeah, it's a good insight, because like I'm scared to do this stuff, to be honest. And a lot of people have commented that they like your new helmet because you're using a bike helmet for a while there, which is epic. But
yeah, I had that one and it worked. I tried to find some water helmets, but none of the other ones fit me.
Mhm.
This one's a prototype for a ride engine. I think yeah, they'll be making them eventually, which is awesome.
Yeah, and good on you for testing them. Have you ever had the foil actually hit you in the head doing these tricks? Like, have you gotten tangled up?
Yeah, I that's kind of the big thing is like you kind of think like you're doing a water sport, why would you need a helmet? But if it's for the board and the foil, especially I was surf foiling once and trying backflips straight on the wave, and I landed, but the board fell off my feet, and then the wave pushed it into my face. And I was wearing a helmet, luckily, but it like cut my lip open and my eyebrow. And I don't know, I'm very lucky it didn't go into my eye, but it definitely like stopped on the foil as well. So it could have hit me a lot harder
Yeah.
if I didn't have that bike helmet on.
Yeah.
So they're good.
Yeah, if you're gonna do tricks, guys, listen to Jeffrey. Use a helmet.
For the forward actually as well, I got this hockey helmet with a full face like plexiglass face guard on it, just because you're talking about how they're kind of scary to try, and it absolutely, like, the backflip's super scary. The front flip is even more scary. My first ones were like very bad. I like landed straight upside down.
Yeah.
I think those ones for windsurfers can be easier because it's similar to a forward loop, but I don't know, like the backflip's super unique from anything else. And I don't know, it's really easy to just make mistakes and fall weird on those things and pop wings. And
yeah, how many wings have you broken? Like, or popped or put a hole in? Or
it's funny, like learning the backflip, I didn't break any. Afterwards, I think I probably broke one doing trying backflips, and then another one trying surf foiling backflips. I ripped one open. And then forwards, luckily I didn't break any. I don't know. I think yeah, it'd be easy to do it. I think with backflips especially, as long as you're getting the foil to the other side of the wing and landing on your stomach, once you get to that point, it's really good. It's a lot harder to break the wing.
Yeah.
And I just doing other stuff, I've broken a lot. I think sometimes you get tangled up in a wave, but surprisingly, probably like 5 to 10 total, which is solid, but it's not a ton.
Yeah, considering how many and like how often you've obviously tried it a lot. And you put some serious time in, and yeah, 5 to 10 is not bad. I was expecting more. So yeah, so that's I want to also. This is something when I saw it, I was really stoked on this one. So this is like a free wing. You basically this is what I love doing when I wing. I love free winging, like Jeffrey is here, and then this jump here is ridiculous. Like, talk us through that, mate. We were talking about it before, but I love that.
Yeah, riding in the waves with wing is really fun because it's kind of like you just get an assisted ride back out every time, and you can just do laps on a wave, kind of like being towed in while foiling, which is really cool. And yeah, I try to do a bunch of different stuff like this, like straight airs, grabs, backside spins. But this one, like when you're going into the wind in a certain way, like this one's directly into the wind going left, it's really hard to project yourself off the very top section of the wave without flying off the back or anything like that. So you have to be really careful when you're going up and lining these things up to not fall, or like when you're in the section, sometimes just keeping the foil like in the water is pretty challenging if it gets hollow, stuff like that. But I was trying a bunch of these, and this one lined up extremely well, and had a nice landing section as well, which was awesome.
Yeah. And what I love about this is it's pretty much it's just surf foiling essentially, and you're just holding, like, you're not getting any height from holding the wing. If anything, it's almost holding you back, but it isn't. like you said, that those airs are hard, and I think my last post I just like sort of launched, and I just launched way off the back of a wave, and everyone was stoked because I got high, but I was never going to land back on the wave. Like it's kind of just, it's just it's just for the photo. This is functional. You're doing a turn that is an air, and you're landing back on the wave, and you're continuing to ride the wave, which that's what I think is so cool about it, because I'm frothing.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. It's really fun doing this stuff. I think, yeah, it's just like the ability to just catch lots of waves with it and do it over and over makes it really fun. And yeah, that one especially was like, you can do jumps like just with the foil. It can give you a lot of air on your own, kind of just anytime you can be in flat water and do one.
Yeah.
But yeah, going off this section is definitely something I was focusing on when trying a bunch of those.
Yeah. Let's go back to sort of downwind foiling and how you use the wing to downwind foil. And for me, in my head, the way I sort of define it is there's free winging, which is kind of more like SUP downwind foiling, but with a wing that kind of holds you back. And then there's, I call it power dinging. So it's like you're using sail to sort of propel yourself. So you're using a big sail, a really small foil, and you're going as fast as you can. And it's kind of a cross between sailing and downwinding. And I assume that's what you're doing for Paddle-a-Moola this weekend or coming up.
Yeah, for races, it's much faster to be powered up when you're going downwind, and it's kind of like if you've seen sailboats going downwind or watched anything like the America's Cup, they don't go straight downwind. They kind of crisscross back and forth, because to get the air flowing over the sail, you have to be moving in one direction, either side to side. So that's what we've been doing a lot. But tons of people do wing downwinders where they'll get up with the wing and then just hold it in their hand, let it drift, and ride the bumps, which is awesome because they don't, like, especially for people that don't stand up paddle or do something like that, it can be a much more reliable and effective way to just get up and then get on the bumps and
it's really accessible.
Get where you're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the gateway drug to downwind, like what I call like pure downwind, which is, with a paddle or just proning. For me, the free wing is super good, but the angles you have to take are sort of, you always have to be going across to keep the wing out of your face. Whereas,
right.
It's still epic. And I guess maybe do you want to describe that, like the free winging and the angles you got to take, and then why it's faster, power dinging, and what equipment you're using for each?
Yeah, it's funny when you're going down winds, like it's really easy to catch up to the wing, and just get in front of it, which is annoying.
Yeah.
If it'll blow over your head or around you or anything like that. But yeah, for racing, we've been using the Dart slingshot wing, which goes downwind really fast. It has a nice big leading edge too, and it's super stiff, so it just keeps its shape really well. So for water starting, it's easy. It's got like a tight outline, and for downwinding, like you can just put it like downwind of you in the zone, but it's still like angled like you were going on a reach, I guess. And then it's kind of just about trimming, like not going too far downwind, because you'll lose kind of the power in the sail, but you want to keep your speed up, so you kind of find the balance between pulling up and aiming down, I guess.
Yeah.
For it.
What size wing are you using most of the time for like your freestyle stuff, and then versus the downwind stuff? Are you same or bigger when you're downwind? Bigger
downwind. I use if I'm doing like just straight airs, jumping or riding in the waves, I'll ride a 4.
Mm-hmm.
If it's super windy, I'll ride a 3.5, and then I use the 3.5 for like front flips and back flips as well. And then downwinding, I'll ride a 4 or a 4.5, something like that.
Yeah. Okay, so it's not as big a range as I thought. Some of the guys that are power dinging here, shout out to Guy, Doggy Dog, up in the Gold Coast. He uses a 7, a 7 meter wing.
Wow.
And he's using like the smallest foil he can get his hands on. Different wind speeds, obviously. Maui is like the windiest place on earth, and if you're thinking about doing a downwinder, you're probably not going if it's like 15 knots like we do. So a 4.5, you're going to be maxed out. If you're using a 7, I think you'd be like ridiculously maxed out. Maybe you'd be quicker. Maybe that's something to think about. And then what size foil are you using for like your flips? And I'm really bad with size foils because Go Foil don't tell you the area, but maybe you can say the area or the span and everyone else can understand.
Yeah, Slingshot at the moment is using span to measure the ones as well. I think they're going to be adding area to make it easy to understand for a lot of people. But I'm riding for surfing or most of the things. It's called the 733 Phantasm, or maybe just 730. It's a high aspect one, but it's pretty small. It's probably better for a lot of kiters. I don't think I probably like for most people winging, it'd definitely be too small for them.
Yeah, I'm going to share your Instagram profile because you can see, I don't know, when you're upside
down,
there's flips. Like this is the foil you use. I can zoom in, I think. So is that it? The 730?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's really fast and pops really well for jumps. And I think there's one in the line called the Phantasm 926 that is kind of just a bigger version of it. And that wing for like good wingers, I guess it's the surface area is probably more like 1200 on it, whereas that other one is maybe like 800. So it's quite a bit bigger. It gets up super efficiently, but it feels it flows very well through the water, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But it's got a great low end and a great top end. And so for like stuff like downwinding or just any people like looking to wing, it works super well.
Yeah, it looks like it's working well, mate.
Yeah, that I actually use that one for like dock foiling and stuff too. It's just a really fun wing. I don't know, you know when you find like that one bigger size wing that just it doesn't feel like you have to work too hard to make it go, and
especially when you sort of dial yourself in and you know that foil so well, you don't want to change even if the conditions doesn't look quite right, but because you know the foil so well, you can make it work in those conditions, and it's your rhythm and your flow, so you know how it runs through the water.
Anytime it's lighter, I'll ride that 926. But most of the time I'm on that 736. And then for downwinding, I'll ride like smaller ones like kite foils, but the 736 as well.
And just to clarify, that's downwind winging.
Sorry, downwinding with the wing.
Yes, because I don't want people to think that you're using the tiny foil to paddle up.
No, I think for normal downwinding, the 926 is a really, really good one actually. Mm-hmm. One of the best ones out there. For sure.
So and is that what you used for Molokai, or are you allowed to tell?
I use something. It's a little different shape, but very like similar profile and everything like that. So yeah, super similar wing.
Yeah, and that's 926.
926.
Yeah,
Phantasm. Yeah, the way it pumps is very, very efficient and very fast. And like it's not the kind where it's really hard to use, I guess, like some of them are. Like I've tried really thin high aspect ones where they're so hard to balance on and everything like that. But
and for those
it's just fun.
Those higher aspect ones, if you're not putting the foil where you want to put it, even if it's faster, it doesn't matter, because if you can't turn it the way you want to turn, you're going into the wrong spots, and all of a sudden you've got to, control and being able to maneuver is so important. And so, like you said, even a quicker foil isn't quicker because you're not putting it where you want to put it.
Right, and I think for most people too, it's much more important to have a foil that turns well, still keeping some of the aspects of like a dedicated race foil. Because like the ones a lot of people use for downwind, they're super flat, super straight, but and they turn like this really well. But if you rock them side to side, it's really hard to just get the weight back on the rail for them. So they're definitely not as fun for most people. So I'd recommend something with a bit of turnability.
Yeah, you mentioned that for Hood River you're using something a little bit bigger to match the speed of the. So we're getting back in a sort of sup downwinding now.
Even for winging, it's the same thing. Like if the wind's a bit lighter, you can use a bit bigger wing or bigger foil, bigger wing.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it?
Same mode downwind.
Yeah. I hate that we're calling it a wing, and we used to call the front foil a wing too, and now we call it a foil.
Yeah, they're all wings.
They're all wings. Oh, we've lost you. Yeah. So what's your like if you're paddle pumping up in the flat water, like true flat? What size foil are you using? Or are you using the same?
I'd ride that 926. It's about 1200 surface area.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very efficient. And if I was really trying to get up like easy, like that video of Jeremy, I'd ride something bigger. Maybe like 1400. Similar shape. Yeah. So like, I think for most people, downwinding, if your weight's, I don't know, 170 or something like 1400, maybe even 1600 if you're just starting, but 1400 is probably a good size. Like, what are you riding for downwind?
I don't know sizes, but a lot of the time I'll use, it's like the NL 190 or the NL 160 if it's windy, or the P 180 or the PNL 185. I wish I brought one up. They're all in my car. I could have shown everyone. This is what I'm using. But they're a pretty big span. Jeffrey's brought some props.
No, I got to plug
it. Plug yourself in. I thought you were showing us your foil. Yeah, I don't know what GoFoil sizes are, so it's really hard for me to say. But if you look it up, you can kind of see. I always recommend people to use the biggest foil they can find to start downwind foiling, unless you're in somewhere like, Maui.
Where it's insanely windy.
Where it's stupid windy. When it's that windy, a bigger foil, you're going to get up. But it's going to be harder, like we spoke about, it's harder to link those bumps because everything's going faster than you. So... But even then, I always say for the first run, use the biggest foil you get your hands on because at least you're going to be able to stay up.
At least you're going to get up.
Get up, exactly. Whereas if you go something
up's the most important part.
Yeah, if you can't get up, you'll never do it again because it's even a 2 mile run or like a 3 or 4 kilometer run downwind on a 6 foot SUP foil board. That's horrible. There's nothing fun about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Slingshot has this wing called like I guess it's the Infinity 99 on the Hoverglide setup, but the Phantasm, I forget the name, but it's massive. It's like it's like the size of a board pretty much. It's probably like 5 liters on its own.
Wow.
The thickness. So for people winging something like that, like a bunch of beginners that I know that are going and like in Hood River and stuff, they'll just ride massive stuff like that and they love it because I mean, especially on a wing like that like as long as it trims well when you get up to speed, like it doesn't overfoil like some massive wings do. Having a big one to start can just be awesome. Like I mean, I'll even ride that on light days just because it's so easy. I don't know.
And like
big wings are fun, I guess. You don't need to be going fast all the time.
Yeah. A lot of the time I'll go out when there's only like 5 to 10 knots of breeze and a little onshore breeze at once, but I'll just paddle out just enough so I can get going and I'll paddle up onto the foil and I'll just do loops. And you can, because the foil's so big, you're actually surfing all this time. You're basically in flat water, but there's tiny little chops and you're surfing these little bumps. Because the wind isn't that strong, you can pump out to sea as well. And then you just sort of surf in again. And it's like a surf foil, but there's no one else out. And you're just using this massive wing. And like you said, big wings are fun. People have gone a little bit anti-big wing for some reason, downwinding. But it's fun just to turn and match the speed. And like you mentioned earlier, match the pace of the wave with your foil and you're going to have fun. Yeah.
Exactly.
What else? I wanted to speak to you about one other thing. Can't remember what it was. Oh, actually, yeah. Okay, so a little bit more into gear. Mast height and fuse length. So personally, I find, and I don't want to skew. Actually, no, you go first. Tell me what you use, and I'll say what I use.
I've been riding for downwind 90 centimeter masts, which works well. I guess the bumps here are really big, so it's nice to have some extra length in the room. But if you're learning, shorter masts can work very well. Like even 70, you probably want at least 80. I don't know. Honestly, though, if the bumps are smaller, like any 70 to 100, this is centimeters, so we'll work pretty well. Winging a lot, I use the 70 centimeter mast.
Oh, so you use shorter when you're winging?
If I'm doing like flips and stuff or surfing, I'll use a short one. If I'm the 80s, tons of people ride 80s, and I like them as well for like just straight airs or riding around. And even like a lot of people who have started to learn and they're just getting like foiling and stuff like that, they'll ride longer masts because they like having that extra room, like extra safety before they pop out. Which makes a lot of sense. And I use pretty short fuselages. I think it's 633 is the length. I know the standard one slingshot it's making is like the 730. I hope I'm getting the names right. There's a lot of numbers.
Yeah, so for Molokai, you use the shorter fuse, so, and is that because it's faster, or
just I enjoy the way it pumps, especially with the small wings I usually ride. It gives you a bit more flexibility, I guess, and responsiveness when you pump. If you use a longer fuselage, it'll be more stable, which can be really good for most people, especially if you're on bigger wings or stuff like that.
So that's interesting because I've played around with length of mast and fuse, and I found for me the sweet spot for the mast was that 32.5 inch, which is it's like 85 centimeters, 82, 85 centimeters. I found the 36.5, which is like 92, 93 centimeters. Unless the conditions were really strong, I didn't like it as much because I felt heavier and a little bit draggier. So if it's a Molokai run, I probably would use the longer mast. But I find there is a length that is too long for downwinding because the drag puts you off a little bit. And then for the fuse length, obviously with GoFall, it's just a pedestal. You can go short pedestal or long pedestal. I prefer the longer pedestal if I'm doing a longer run in messier conditions, just because there's that extra stability. If I'm just doing a shorter run and I just want to sort of turn harder, for sure I like the shorter pedestal, so shorter fuse. But I just found, because in Sydney we get lots of backwash, a shorter fuse would mean I'm more likely to fall off because it's less stable. The longer fuse, I'd just be less likely to fall off, and I didn't notice any difference in speed, so I went longer most of the time. I always like to hear what other people are using. And then what about tail wings? I don't know, there's only I
use this one called the 325. It's maybe this big. It's not, it's pretty small. It's got like wingtips on it. It's just nice and reliable. They also have a 420, which is the width. And it's like a bit wider and curves down a little bit. I think that's something that's important with like matching the stability of the front wing as well.
Sure.
Like with the 926 front wing, which is the bigger one, the 420 works well. Like Finn likes that a lot more. But I'll use the small one for a lot of stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think you've got to match, and maybe that's true with the fuse length too. If the front wing's super stable, you can get away with a shorter fuse.
Right.
There's so many variables with foiling. I use a long mast and this fuse, but if you have to be using the same foil to understand why that is, I think. So anyway, super interesting to hear what you're using. And
I think if people just have the ability to try different stuff, go for it and see what you like. It's a lot of preference with stuff like that, especially if you're doing it for fun.
Yeah,
like sure. Some things might not be as efficient, but when you're riding them, you can be having a lot more. You can be having a lot more fun on them, which is what's important.
Yeah, you want to be able to sort of, like we said earlier, maneuverability is always going to be better than speed, because if the speed is so high but it's like a dog to turn, you're not going to be able to put it where you want to put it.
Right.
Yeah. So let me wrap it up. It's been really fun chatting, Jeffrey, and I know you've got things to do, and I'm sure it's probably windy over there. You want to get out there. But thanks for taking the time. And do you want to finish with any tips or shout outs, or what do you want to finish with? Actually, let me ask you a question. If I'm going to ask for a few tips. So if someone's just getting into downwind foiling, what are 3 tips you would give them? First time.
Start on a board that you are completely comfortable standing on without falling over. That's a big one. And also a foil that is very big to like, especially when you start on a big board, like having a big foil to be able to get it up is important as well. Those are 2 tips. And then, yeah, practice, like if you're getting out in downwind bumps, really focus on getting that forward momentum built up before you start trying to pump up on the wing. It happens fast, but it's very important just to really focus on grinding forward with the paddle. And as you do that, you'll feel the foil start to engage, and it'll make sense when the right time is to get up on it.
Yeah, good one. Yeah, great tips. One thing we didn't touch on, I'm just thinking of now, reading the bumps and how to get up and going. Maybe just a little quick one. Like when you're looking to get going, are you looking for a specific feeling?
Yeah, certainly. You like kind of wait as each one goes by the board. You kind of feel it as you're standing there, and you're really looking. I guess it depends on the size of your board and the size of the one you're on, but you want something that stretches out in front of you to give you enough room to really go forward on it. But something short and steep, like steep on the back, but not too steep in the front, is good. But usually, like the bumps are wide enough to fit even bigger boards. So, and those are still the short and steep ones. So yeah, you want to look for something short and steep. And as you come off the back, the water will start to suck up. And as soon as you're feeling like you can start paddling as you're going down the back of the one in front of you. And then as that one comes up, you'll be up to speed, and then really focus on like staying with that as you get your forward momentum and pop up.
Yeah.
And then once you're up, sometimes like you end up turning off to one on the side or something like that. But yeah, using that short, steep section to get up is super useful.
Yeah, no, that's kind of been consistent with. I've asked that same question to a few people, and similar things. Short and steep is always the key words. Like they're the 2 describing words. Like you want like these little tiny wind chops, not these really big, open, deep ocean swell troughs. Because those ocean swell ones you're never going to catch. The short.
And it might be different for us in Hawaii because we have a lot of those big wide ones. Where a lot of other people are, there might just be mostly shorter ones. But even then, it's like the reason we say that is because the short ones are the ones that become the steep ones, I guess. Like the wider ones, they'll just be too flat. You won't really get much push from them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Nah,
in general, that should work.
Yeah, good tip, because I know Malik, Jeffrey's lucky enough to live, on the doorstep of the Molokai run. So, conditions, our good conditions are different. Good for us is like a bad day on the Molokai run. Yeah, you guys get epic conditions. And then, do you want to give a shout out to any sponsors or, anyone?
Yeah, Slingshot, I've been working with them on a lot of stuff, which is great. And Ride Engine, which is part of Slingshot too. They're with wing accessories and stuff.
Yeah. And anyway, thanks for coming on, Jeffrey. It's been really cool to chat. Make sure you say good day to Henry and Finn as well, and all your family. And I can't wait to get back over there and do a couple of runs with you.
Yeah, thanks, James. It's been great.
Cheers, mate.